you get slammed up against the rocks on rock portage and you hurt yourself and you got to get rolled. It got so bad that they had to pull me out. At this point, I knew, okay, that's 2 medical rolls, you're out, you got to go. I wanted to come back. There was no ands, ifs, or buts about it. I wanted to come back. This was a challenge and it had beat me, but it hadn't killed my spirit yet.
Yeah.
I ended up going back finally and making it through.
Welcome to Combat Story. I'm Ryan Fugit, and I served warzone tours as an Army attack helicopter pilot and CIA officer over a 15-year career. I'm fascinated by the experiences of the elite in combat. On this show, I interview some of the best to understand what combat felt like on their front lines. This is Combat Story. Today we hear a combat story with former Navy SEAL Joel McGuire, who completed multiple combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, in addition to deployments to Europe and South America over a 20-plus year career. We were introduced to Joel, interestingly, when scheduling an upcoming interview with Sam Mackey, another SEAL just about to retire. Sam was deployed with Joel, and we'll have a combat story with both individuals together, talking about some of the battles they fought in. In this episode, Joel goes into detail about his multiple attempts to finally get through BUD/S, his battlefield experiences, managing short-term memory loss, sleep deprivation, and emotional challenges of losing close-knit community members in action. Joel also talks through the challenges of Maritime Interdiction Operations, or MEOs, which many have likely seen in the news recently, as a MEO tragically claimed the lives of 2 Navy SEALs in the past month, and it's helpful to better understand what goes into these operations and what exactly makes them so risky. With that, please enjoy this conversation with Joel McGuire, a tough old frogman, and stay tuned for a future episode for our joint interview with Joel and his fellow SEAL, Sam.
Joel, thanks a lot for coming out to California to visit. Really appreciate you coming by, and it's going to be fun as we kind of juxtapose your story with Sam's and where they intertwine. But this one is just with you. So thank you for making the trip.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I wanted to start with the Javolina, the story that you shared with me, but I did think just as we were driving away from the airport, you mentioned this is not your first time to this part of Northern California, and I thought maybe we could hit on how you got out here the last time.
I was out of high school and I met a girl from California. Just happened to be in West Texas, town of Alpine. And we dated for a little bit, and I told her I'd come see her out here. And one day I hopped on my motorcycle and rode it all the way out here from Texas to come see her and spend a week with her. Well, then I took the trip back, but I had to get back to work. So I did a 26-hour straight drive, just stopping for gas and food.
That is insane. Is that the longest you've ridden on a bike?
Yes.
Yeah, it's got to be. We were saying, I mean, the things you do for women,
yeah,
the list is long.
And when you're young, it doesn't matter.
It's easy. And then you said you also came back right on a ship later time.
Yep, when I first joined the Navy,
yeah,
I had to do 2 years out in the big Navy because I came in with some waivers and had a kind of probationary period. So this ship I was on ported into San Francisco, and I called that girl up, and her and her sister came and picked up my buddy and I and spent the weekend with them.
That's great. I guess we got to talk about the way you grew up, because I don't know how many parents are like, yeah, hop on your bike and drive out to California from Texas.
Well, I was already out of high school and pretty much on my own at this point. My parents got divorced when I graduated high school, so they both didn't think it was a great idea, but they knew it kind of was going to go in one year, not the other. And all they wished for was that I had a safe trip.
Yeah, I can imagine. Did your dad ride?
Yes. We all started riding when I think I bought my first dirt bike when I was 7 years old.
Jeez.
And the deal was with my dad was he would, if you raised $100, he would match you $100. So I bought a XR 75 for $200.
How'd you raise that money at 7?
Cleaning lawns and mowing.
At 7? Okay. And you had mentioned that you were also kind of the black sheep of the family, and I thought that was an interesting thing that you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, my family was kind of into roping, and we had some horses, we had motorcycles, and then one of my brothers went back to horses. But, both my older brothers, they had serious girlfriends in high school. And my younger sister, same thing, she's kind of serious about their boyfriend. But I refused to have a girlfriend at the time. It's like I wanted to enjoy life and be a kid.
I hope my kids
hang out
with this.
Go hang out with my friends and do stupid shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of stupid shit, let's talk about the Javolina.
Okay, it's a Javolina.
Okay.
And it looks like a wild pig.
Yeah.
But so my buddy Matt and I were out driving around the ranch that his dad kind of ran. We stopped the truck and went out walking, and then I was always really quick, really fast. So I kind of took off, and I went and I saw these baby javelinas kind of playing around like puppies. So I went and caught one, and I come running from behind all this brush because I saw mama and family coming up behind this little ridge. So I took off running back to the truck. Still had this little baby javelina in my hand. And as I'm running by, Matt is standing there looking at me like, what the hell are you doing? And I throw the javelina at him. He catches it. He's like, what the hell? And he looks and he sees mom and family coming up. So he starts running. And I made it to the truck. Plenty of time. Matt, I think the mama javelina probably missed him by maybe less than a foot when he jumped in the bed of the truck. The whole time he's cussing at me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But that's pretty much growing up. That's what we did.
Yeah.
We were always up to something, usually up to no good. But we look back at those times and it's just lots of laughter, lots of fun. Like, how did we ever survive?
I know. And now that, you feel bad with kids inside and on devices and that's not going to happen in these days.
No. I'm glad we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah, I know. You couldn't capture that. Couldn't
capture stuff like that. And we often joke that if there was cell phones back then, most of us would probably be in prison.
That's right. That is, we say that
because there
all
was
the time.
Proof evidence. Yeah. Right now, all there is just our memories.
That's right. Oh, geez. Something else that you mentioned as we were kind of preparing was that you got into fights as a kid, but it doesn't sound like it was because you wanted to fight necessarily.
I didn't mind fighting when I was growing up. But if one of my friends got into an altercation, I would jump in without even knowing who was at fault. I didn't want my friends to fight.
Yeah.
And also I had two older brothers. So a couple of times they would just tell me, hey, go beat that kid up because he came over and bumped into me. And I wouldn't even question my brother. I'd just go over there and start pummeling.
Jeez.
And of course, this was at school. So I would get hauled into the principal's office, get licks. And
so they could actually give you licks then.
Oh yeah, I got licks from the kindergarten all the way through senior year in high school. Yeah, my parents would turn in a note to the teacher and principal at the beginning of the school year. If he needs it, give it to him, and just call us and tell us why he got it. So,
when you say give it to him, like give him licks.
Yeah, give me licks.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I'd get it at school. And then sometimes I'd get it at home again. So double whammy. Two for the price of one. But I still didn't learn.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned why is it you didn't want your friends to have to fight? I don't know if I've heard people say that before as a kid.
I don't know. I just didn't think that they needed to fight. I mean, if there was going to be a fight, I was going to fight for them. So I did it several times. where I didn't like bullying.
Yeah.
You know, we give each other a hard time, but we weren't into like bullying people.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody tried to bully somebody, I didn't put up with it.
It's funny. That's a super common reference that I get after interviewing, 150 vets. I feel the same way. Just this like pretty visceral disdain for bullies.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's like one of the things that makes you think I need to go into the military, or if the military helps cultivate that spirit in you. But it sounds like you had it as a kid.
Yeah, that, and plus, like I said, I had 2 older brothers.
Yeah, you had to survive.
Yeah, and they were big on nobody could touch me except them.
Yeah. I literally tell my kids this.
Yeah.
I'm also the youngest of 3 boys, so I understand where you're coming from. Did your brothers end up going into the military?
No, I was the only one. They both ended up getting married pretty much out of high school and starting their careers.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what was it for you? Why choose that path?
Well, it was kind of one of those, go serve your country or you're going to end up in jail. I was a straight A student pretty much in high school. And when I went to college, I skipped classes because they were boring. I'd go and take the test and I'd do well on the test. I had a couple of professors kind of, like, hey, my policy is you show up to class or you don't pass. I'm like, it's boring. So I stopped going to college and started working different jobs and just getting in a lot of fights and then getting in trouble with getting pulled over for drinking after hours, things like that. So it just kept on adding more and more. And it got to the point where when the judge, state troopers, the sheriff, the city cops, and even my boss at the highway department were telling me that, hey, you need to get out of here or you're going down the wrong path.
Wow.
So after getting in trouble one more time, I kind of stopped and thought about it. So I started calling the recruiters, but nothing really interested me. Some of my buddies that joined the military came back and they'd tell me stories they were excited about, but it just really didn't interest me. And one night I went into a bar, and one of my buddies that quite a bit older than me, but he was in right post Vietnam. He was in Marines, and he's told me to come there, sit down with him, and he told me like, you ever thought about joining the SEALs? And back then there wasn't movies or anything like that. So I'm like, what? And he's like, there's a group of guys in the Navy I think you'll fit in with. I'm like, in the Navy? I'm like, all my buddies that went to the Navy come back and they sound like their stories are boring to me. And he's like, no, it's a different part of the Navy. And he told me about him. So on Monday morning, I called the recruiter and I said, hey, tell me about SEALs. And the first thing out of his mouth is, are you crazy? It sounds like a challenge, and I think that's what I need in my life. So he came down and we talked.
And these stories from these other people, they were kind of big Navy, I'm assuming.
Big Navy, big Army.
Yeah.
And the Marines sounded more appealing,
mm-hmm.
but it still didn't grasp me like something should.
Yeah. It's interesting that a former Marine would have pointed you toward the SEALs and not toward something in the Marine Corps. Did he just know you really well?
We knew each other pretty well.
Yeah. Huh.
He was let's just say he wasn't a law-abiding citizen.
Got it.
He was involved in some shady stuff.
Yeah.
But somehow we became friends, and, I stayed out of his way. He didn't drag me into his part of his work.
Yeah.
So.
Huh. If you hadn't done it, like maybe you don't have that encounter in the bar with him, do you think you still would have found your way to the SEALs or even the military at all?
I think I would have found my way to the military somehow, because even my boss at the time, he was prior Army and he'd been in the Rangers. And he told me about the Rangers a little bit. And, but he wanted me to go to military, just get my GI Bill, and then come back, go to school, and then work for him until I got my degree. So,
wasn't really what you were looking for.
Well, I didn't know what I wanted at the time, but I knew I needed to get out of my, that part of town, or that part of the, Texas, because I was just getting in trouble.
You think you would have ended up in jail?
Probably.
Longer term? Did you talk to your folks about this decision? Because you were a little bit older, it sounds like, right?
I was 22, I think.
Yeah.
So I did. I told them that I was going to join the military, that I needed to make a change, and they didn't want to see me leave, but at the same time, they knew I had to go. They were hoping I would just go and finish college, just gone somewhere else to finish college, but they said, at least this way you're going in some direction.
Yeah. Jeez. And you didn't have like a history of service in the family, it sounds like.
I had cousins that, went to the Marine Corps. My uncle was in the Army. I think he was with the 101st Screaming Eagles in Korea. And my grandfather was in World War II in the Army.
Okay. And did you grow up with stories of that? Was it like part of it? Not really.
My grandfather really didn't talk much about it. And my uncle, only when I asked him. He kind of kept that part to himself, And my cousin, if I would have asked him, he would have told me. But he was like 8 years older than me, 9 years older than me. So, it seemed to have done him good, when he went to the Marines. He came back and you could tell he was, more focused on, just a different man. So I'm like, okay, I need something.
Yeah.
So that was my challenge.
And you knew you wanted to go to the teams, but you mentioned you kind of had a slightly different path, a bit of a detour because of some waivers.
I had to weigh my penance.
Did you? For what? For
all
the record that you were bringing?
Yeah, my least, my not so stellar record with the police.
Okay.
I almost lost my driver's license because I'd gotten so many moving violations, exhibition of acceleration, reckless driving, you name it. I already had it. Alcohol related ones, drinking after hours, fighting, contributing to a delinquency of a minor, which I didn't actually do that, but I got a ticket for it. But I had just a laundry list of tickets. So
the deal was 2 years, or is that, I don't know, 2 years, big Navy, something like that?
Just I had to go pay my penance in the big Navy for a while, and then I could, try to go apply for buds.
Was that a guarantee that you'd have a chance to do that? It was completely rolling the dice.
Rolling the dice. But my recruiter was pretty honest with me. So he actually told me of a 2-year program that he probably got in trouble for because I scored really high on my ASVAB. And so I signed up for this 2-year program as an apprentice, either deck seaman or airman or fireman. And you do pretty much the worst jobs on the ship. But it gave me the opportunity to look around and see what I wanted to do, what rating I wanted to get, or job specialty, MOS, before I went to the teams.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you kind of did the hard job out of the gates, but you knew all along you wanted to get to the team somehow.
Yes.
Jeez. So how do you earn your way in there? Because I imagine it's not, hey, just come on in, Mr. Probation.
You have to put in a package. You have to take your screening test. You have to have your scores have to be good. You have to get approval from your command. And the thing is, I mean, the Navy doesn't want to let all their guys go to buds. You know, you have some leaders that will be like, okay, you know what? He deserves a shot. Let him go. But most of the time they're like, no, we want you to stay here.
Can't afford to lose you.
Yeah, we want you to stay here and, be one of the race for a ship, and I fought that pretty much the whole time.
Did you have somebody in your corner who kind of gave you the shot?
Finally, it got to the point where I was actually going to get out before even getting a chance to try.
Why?
Because I had tried they call it strike for a job, for a rate. And that's what this apprenticeship program allows you to do. And I was getting blocked, and I was getting told that, yeah, everything's in order, you're good to go. And then, later I found out that nothing was done. So it got to the point where the ship was getting home ported in Sasebo, Japan, out of San Diego. And I went and got my checkout sheet, and everybody's like, what are you doing? I said, I got 4 months left. I said, I came in here to do something, and, y'all aren't allowing me to. So I said, I'm going to go out and find something else to do. So it got all the way up to the executive officer, and he called me in with my division officer. Division officer is the one that actually brought it to the XO's attention, and he told them what was going on. So the XO called me up to his stateroom in his office, and we talked, and I told him the story, and he asked me, he goes, would you give me, I think he said, ask me for 3 months, 3 more months. You can go to, I wanted to be a corpsman, a medic. I found out that's what I wanted to do. You can go to HM rating, and then I'll try to get you into school. And I told him, I said, that all sounds good, sir, but I need that in writing. And he's like, I don't blame you one bit. And so he called the CO, and they talked, and they got me at least the corpsman school. And after that, it was on me.
Jeez.
Yeah. It was, I understand why some part of the Navy's like that, but at the same time, they got to give you a chance.
Yeah. Especially with the washout rate at BUDS, right? I mean, there's a strong chance people are coming back after that, I would imagine. The corpsman track, I mean, that's a lot of training. Did you go and do that first, and then you kind of fought to get into BUDS from there?
Mm-hmm. And, went through your Army's 18 Delta course also, which is a great course.
Yeah, I've heard that thing is amazing.
It is a fire hose treatment, but you're very well trained. Very well trained out of there.
So, but was that a year and a half?
We had the choice at the time to do like the first 6 months, and then go to your team and do a couple of platoons, and then come back and finish the other half. Or some people do go straight through for the full year. But I just wanted to get to the team. It's been a long road. So
it was, 6 months training, then you go to BUDS? Or did you have to go to BUDS before that?
No, before
the corpsman school?
No, you go to corpsman A school first.
Okay.
And then you wait for your orders to go to BUDS if you get the package put in and it gets approved.
How prepared did you feel going to BUDS?
Physically, I thought I was really good, but that place is a different animal. You can prepare all you want, but until you get there, you have no clue what you're getting into.
I got to imagine, and maybe it's worth sharing what year it was, because like you said, there weren't all the movies, there wasn't the internet to learn all about this place. It was probably a bit of a black box.
Well, I actually I went there in 93 and going through first phase. I failed life saving the day before we went into Hell Week. It was a Friday, and Hell Week started on Sunday. So I got rolled back to day one. 5 more weeks, I had to do 5 weeks again, the first phase. And coming through the second time, everything was going good. Then I think it was Sunday night, they do hygiene inspection, which is a doctor. You have to go through in front of the doctor's medical staff, and they listen to your lungs and look at you to see how you're doing. And they do this every night. And I had pneumonia.
Did you know it?
I knew something was up, but I still felt really strong.
Yeah, you were young enough that pneumonia.
Yeah, I mean, it was just an early onset.
Yeah.
I knew something was going on, but I felt really strong. So it didn't, that when the doctor put me over to where, hey, you're going to get pulled out, you're going to get rolled. The instructor asked him, like, what's going on? He's like, well, his lungs sound like shit. And I'm like, well, he's doing really good. So they put me on antibiotics and let me keep going.
Jeez.
So Monday night, it was worse. Monday afternoon, Tuesday, I started coughing up, some stuff. And Tuesday night, I was coughing up pink, frothy stuff.
Wow.
And the instructors, they were just, they were doing what they could. But then Wednesday, around after lunch, they pulled me out of my boat crew and listened to my lungs and like, you're done. I went to the hospital for a little while.
Just a quick word from our sponsor, NordVPN, and we'll get right back to this combat story. For those steering through today's digital landscape, let's elevate your online experience with NordVPN, the Swiss Army knife-like tool that's more than just a shield. Navigating online spaces requires more than just basic security. NordVPN provides that extra layer with advanced encryption protocols, ensuring your private information stays private, even on unsecured public Wi-Fi networks. I used it while I was in Europe this winter to protect my online activity, especially anytime I was looking at banking statements or credit cards in a public Wi-Fi setting. But NordVPN isn't just about defense, it's about freedom. The network spanning over 6,000 servers in 61 countries, you can gain the power to bypass geo restrictions. This means streaming international sports events, accessing global news, or exploring international markets for your business with ease and speed. Speaking of speed, NordVPN stands out as one of the fastest VPN services. I can attest to that, and that's why I use them. Whether you're video conferencing, gaming, streaming, or just looking at your banking information, NordVPN ensures a smooth buffer-free experience. Innovatively, NordVPN offers a feature called Threat Protection, which actively blocks malicious websites and ads, making your browsing safer and cleaner, proactively watching out for potential threats. So, step up the security of your online game. Get exclusive NordVPN deals here at nordvpn.com/combat story. That's NordVPN, NordVPN.com/combat story. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the episode description. And now, back to this combat story.
Was that just like a mental blow? It's got to be so hard getting pulled out of that.
It crushed me because, I was just trying to get through Hell Week. After that, I could, at least heal up, but it didn't work out. My stars did not align.
Did you call anyone then? Like, how did you deal with that?
I just kind of go back to the compound and, your bud's compound, and you talk to your friends there and get motivated to get healed up and
do it
start again.
So third time around?
The third time around, a week before Hell Week, I partially tore a hip flexor. And the instructors did something which baffled me, that they told me, okay, you're not going to run this last week, but come Hell Week, you have to participate in everything. I'm like, okay, got it. So I had to walk the obstacle course, I had to do everything, and started Hell Week again. And I think it was Monday or Tuesday, it got so bad that they had to pull me out.
No way.
At this point, I knew, okay, that's 2 medical rolls, you're out, you got to go. But they were going to try to keep me there. But I told them, I said, no, I need to get away from here and heal up properly. So I went and worked at the emergency room at the hospital for a couple of years.
Interesting. And knowing you wanted to go back, or were you like, I don't know if I want to go do that again?
No, I wanted to come back. There's no ands or buts about it. I wanted to come back. It's like this was a challenge, and it had beat me, but it hadn't killed my spirit yet.
Yeah.
So I ended up going back finally and making it through.
In better shape. Just you probably knew exactly what to expect.
I was in good shape before it, but just that place is, you can be in the best shape of your life, and a lot of things can go wrong. I've had some friends that they were doing well, and then somebody in the class stepped on their foot, they got a stress fracture, they got rolled, or you get hit, you get slammed up against the rocks on rock portage, and you hurt yourself, and you gotta get rolled.
Did you know by any chance, we had a guest on the show a couple years back, a guy named Tom Shea.
Yeah.
His story sounds very similar. Like, I think he got rolled 5 times, worked at the hospital, and like every day at lunch went to maybe
the pool or the gym.
I think he would wait at the admiral's office every day until the guy was like, all right, I'll let you back in last time for buds. I think it might have been his 6th time in. Gosh.
Yeah, I know, Tom.
Oh, jeez. When you finally made it through, I guess going through all that training, did it somewhat validate the decision that you had made? Like, this is, you kind of found the right place for you?
Yes. It's kind of strange, but once you go through that training, you kind of look at things differently.
How so?
I don't know. Little things just don't matter. You can push yourself a lot more than you thought. And, it's like you don't put limits on yourself. It's kind of dangerous sometimes.
Yeah.
But, that's what we did when we were kids.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's dangerous, but also a benefit in that job in some ways.
Very rewarding. Yeah. And, you meet some of the best guys out there. So it was a great place for me, and I enjoyed it up until the time I got out. I enjoyed myself, and then at one point I finally decided, you know what, it's time for me to get out.
It's time.
Yeah.
As you kind of looked around the class you graduated with, I mean, I assume you go to teams with some of these guys who are graduating with you. Did you feel like, hey, these are the right people, that like I'm in with the right crew here?
Yeah, and I had a lot of friends that I was in classes with before that were teams that, when I got to like Virginia Beach, they all kind of helped me. Like, okay, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to really focus on, and they were great. And then a lot of those guys became really badass leaders.
Yeah,
too, so
I bet. When you arrived, how long does it take until you actually get your trident?
It took about 1.5 years. Yeah, it took a while because you had to wait before they formed back then it was called STT, SEAL Tactical Training. And so all the teams from the East Coast would put together enough guys to go through a course, some training. And then you had to do well through that. And you got evaluated on everything. And then finally you would get picked by a platoon. It was like almost like an NFL draft, platoon teams and stuff, kind of trying to grab whoever they want. So it's a little bit of a draft. And you get in your platoon, and then you're the new guy. You're the FNG for a while. Yeah. But that's fine though, because you're making progress.
Yeah.
And then you have to go. Back then, you had to go through 2 major blocks of training before they would consider you giving you your trident, which was either land warfare, diving, or CQC. And you had to do well in those. And then your platoon would decide yes, yay or nay.
You mentioned there's a year and a half. Was that before you even start that STT?
That's from the time I graduated BUDS and went to the first half of the 18 Delta course. Yeah, and all that.
Jeez. You'd already been assigned to your team at that point. It's now just what platoon you're going to end up in.
Yeah.
Are guys kind of jockeying for, hey, I like this team chief, or he's got a good reputation, or that platoon's?
As a new guy, you have no say.
You just do what you're told.
Your opinion matters to nobody. It's whoever, however you did in STT and other stuff that, then puts your value on, how much you're valued. So it's pretty funny. Yeah, you have no say.
No. For the team assignment, you said you went to 10. Is that right? 2. Oh, to 2.
My first time was SEAL Team 2.
Does each team have its own reputation to some degree? What is 2? Or maybe at that time, is it consistent over time? But
Team 2 at that point was known as the Nazi PT team. They were very strict on things, and especially the PTs, the working out. Every Tuesday, you were going to do a 2-mile ocean swim, no matter what. I think they only got called off once when there was lightning. Small craft advisory, nope, you're going to be out there swimming. Breaking ice, like on the beach, as you're just kind of walking on the sand with a thin layer of ice, yep, you're going to swim 2 miles.
This is a naive question. Are you wearing any wetsuit or anything? I would assume
you're wearing a wetsuit, but it still sucks. It still sucks, but you still go out there and do it. Every Tuesday, you had a 2-mile ocean swim. I think Wednesday was obstacle course. Every Friday was 8 to 12 mile run.
When you got assigned to 2, are all the other guys like, oh, you're going to that PTL?
I knew that's the one I picked because that's where a lot of my friends have gone to. And they told me about it, which, hey, whatever. I didn't care.
Yeah.
But I always thought that all the teams were like that. Every team was known for different things, but Team 2 at that time was known for that.
That was that.
Yeah. And I don't know if you ever heard of a master chief called Rudy Bosch. He was a master chief for a long time. He'd retired. But if he had open door policy where he would walk in and out of the teams. He'd go into Team 2, and if he saw you, my hair would be a little bit too long. He's like, "What's your name?" I'd say Agent 3 McGuire. Check the watch bill. He would put your name on the watch bill because your hair was out.
He's retired.
He was retired at this point. Yeah, he was a very well respected man.
Yeah,
he was very everybody loved him. But he was like that.
Would he also, and maybe there were more of the guys like this, but would they come back and share experiences? I'm sure it wasn't just writing you up for infractions, but
no, they'd sit around with you and talk.
Yeah,
they'd share some experiences and give you some advice. But it was funny that's what Rudy was known for after he retired, was coming back and putting you on the watch bill. That quarterdeck watch.
Oh, jeez. Did you? Were there guys you started out with in Team 2 that you stayed friends with throughout? Like you still know these guys?
I still stay friends with a lot of the guys. I still stay in touch with a lot of them. Some of them got out, and one of my buddies is an air marshal now. Another one, he does really well with pharmaceutical cells.
Mm-hmm.
He's done phenomenal with it. And, he was one of those guys who was always there also. They all came to my retirement.
That's great.
Got some grip. They gave me some awesome gifts, so it's kind of started a family there.
Yeah, it's a tight community. I have to imagine.
But I also have some friends that, were never SEALs that I still run around with a lot. One of my best friend that we were roommates. We both worked at Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego, waiting to go to SEAL training.
Mm-hmm.
And he went and he had fallen from a second story and busted his head open. And I guess it caused a problem that they found at the medical there when he checked in the buds, and they dropped him. Yeah. But, he's my best friend. He's down in Austin. So we hang out together a lot. And I got lots of friends like that didn't make it through for some reason or another. But we all stayed close and stayed in touch, and we all get together like probably once a year now.
Yeah. Are there any traditions within the teams, or maybe at that time, that you kind of look back on fondly?
Yeah, it's the brotherhood and the pride that we had. You always wanted to do. Everybody always wanted you to do your best, and helped you. Like if you were having some bad day or something, somebody would always crack you up. Make a joke.
Yeah.
But it's just that's what I missed most when I retired, was just the guys.
Mm-hmm.
Going out and shooting and blowing up things, I miss that too. But just the guys that all the close friendships that I made, the guys that I was with for so many years.
And this is mid 90s, it sounds like. So do many of those guys have combat experience at the time? Any of them find themselves in Desert Storm?
No, they were doing different things though. There was other things going on that we didn't know about until I got to.
So you get in, kind of get right in.
But that's I miss that part. I miss all the guys.
Yeah.
The guys I deployed with. And
where were you at when 9/11 happens?
I was in Bahrain. We had just finished doing MEOs off the coast of Kuwait.
Can you explain what a MEO is for people?
It's a Maritime Interdiction Op, which ships are smuggling things from at that point it was from Iraq. And so we'd board them, take them over, and then the regular Navy would bring their guys on board after we secured it and take it to wherever it needed to be taken. So we were doing that before 9/11. And then they were going to give us 4 or 5 days just to relax in Bahrain. And we got there, and then the next morning it happened.
Were you all in a room together, watching it, or?
No, we had some guys. We were kind of scattered because some guys went to go see some different things, and I just happened to be walking from the hotel I was at on the base, and a friend of mine was like, "Hey, man, something just happened at one of the World Trade Centers," and so I'm like, "What are you talking about?" His name was Brian, but we call him Porky. "What are you talking about, Pork?" He's like, "Come up here." So ran up the stairs and into one of our spaces up there, and was watching it burn. And here comes the second one.
What'd you think as you were watching that? Did you know
I was like,
things were going to change?
Yeah, I knew things were going to change, but I was just like, how could this happen?
Yeah.
How could this happen on our, in our country? What's going to happen now?
You mentioned MEO in terms of these operations. Super sad news. I was just reading, I think it was in the past 2 weeks, that 2 SEALs can't be found after a boarding operation. I think it was tactical, not training, I believe. And, I obviously have not done that. So as I was reading the story, just trying to understand, how could that happen? You got a team there. I think it was at night, really rough seas.
I think there were 8-foot seas.
One guy falls in. One guy voluntarily jumps in to go try to save him.
Well, somebody. We always taught to go in pairs.
But I guess for the layman like myself, I'd be curious, the conditions have to be pretty tough. It's not smooth sailing every time you do one of those ops, I have to imagine.
No, and you're not climbing a regular ladder. You're climbing what's called a caving ladder. And it's 2 thin cables with a rung, and they'll twist on you and turn on you. And then you're climbing with all your kit, body armor, your weapons, your magazines, radio, and, you know, some guys have the big radio, the comms guys. They got the big radio. The breacher might have a cutting torch on it.
Yeah.
Might have one of those quickie saws. And you never know. You know, we train all the time to do those, but, you know, everything's high risk for a reason.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened. You know, one guy fell. You know, maybe as he was climbing up, maybe his kit kept on getting hung up, and he just smoked his forearms, couldn't hold on, or maybe he just something hit and he slipped.
Yeah. You
know, thought he had his footing, but he didn't. There's a lot of things can go wrong, you know, and obviously something did.
Yeah.
I would like to know what happened, but, you know, who knows when that comes out.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's the same thing in the aviation community. Like, you have mishaps constantly, and you try to learn from them, but it's so sad to hear these things. So 9/11 happens, you're in Bahrain. Do they kind of move you all back stateside so you can?
No, they put us on a ship right there, and we all had to leave the ports because we didn't know what was happening. So a ship sitting at a port is sitting duck. So all the ships pulled out, and, you know, we kind of just sat around for a while, and then I think it's the Suez Canal that's up there.
Mm-hmm.
We were at the end of our deployment, so they tasked us to board the ships that were coming through, the U.S. ships that were going to be going through the Suez Canal, and like 3 or 4 of us on each ship would escort it through, like kind of keep eyes on, because they thought that to the big Navy, we could identify a target and engage it quicker than somebody else. So, you know, we did that. Then they fly us back to another ship, and we did the same thing again.
Okay.
And then they finally made our way back.
Was there any, like, within the team or the platoon at that time, were you all just itching to go?
Oh yeah,
downrange, and like, how do we get us off these ships and get us in there?
Oh, believe me, that OIC, the troop commander, and the platoon chief, everybody was trying to figure out a way to get in. But, you know, they go by these things like, hey, you're at the end of your deployment.
Yep.
You need to come home. And we're like, we're all fine. Just put us in. You know, but, you know, a lot of things have to happen before they can put anybody in. You know, you have to get your plan going and figure out who's who and who's going. And so, yeah, we ended up coming back.
When do you first find yourself going downrange? What year is it? What role are you in, and what team?
Well, I got back from that and went to Team 4 because they did a restructuring. So I went to Team 4, and we ended up deploying to Germany and bouncing out of there, doing some training. But while we were there, there was something going on down in Liberia. There was something like 3,000 rebels all converging on Monrovia, and we have an embassy there. So they sent 18 of us to go evacuate the embassy. So we got most of the embassy evacuated like we were supposed to, and then there was supposed to be somebody was supposed to come relieve us, some big unit. They're supposed to come relieve us, like, you know, 3 or 4 days later, but that didn't happen. I guess the ambassador called the State Department. The State Department called, you know, DOD, and they came back down that we're staying.
We like these guys. We like these SEALs here.
Yeah, I guess they liked us. But, so they started all those rebels kind of came in, and I don't really know what their intent was, but they'd kind of like poke and prod, but they would never advance, which was good because there was only 18 of us.
Yeah. Did it feel, I mean, that's sure it's not technically like combat downrange, but that's got to be a hairy situation.
Oh yeah.
Especially
was there.
18 people and what, like a Marine Guard detachment, probably.
Yeah. It was kind of strange. We didn't know what to expect. Then they finally sent some more guys in, and everything settled, and we went back to Germany and bounced around again for another while, and then not until 2005 went to Iraq, and that's when we first started actually doing combat ops.
And that was with Team 4.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like going from one team to another in the SEALs?
It was, at first, when I first checked in, it was each team had its own identity, but then they restructured everything. And when we went from 2 to 4, pretty much a lot of the guys from Team 2 came to 4 with me. And they set up a new team, Team 10. And it was like all the teams kind of lost their identity for a little bit. But it took a while to get it back to kind of where it was, okay, you can tell Team 2 is big on this, Team 4 is big on this, Team 8 is big on this, Team 10 is big on this. And they have their own different, it's like a culture.
Yeah.
But like all the guys that I was with at Team 4 in 05 were pretty much all from Team 2.
Okay. So
it was strange. I can't remember what they call it, Force 21 or something.
I remember that. Yeah. This grand restructuring plan.
Yeah. I don't know why they did it. Or, I mean, at that point in my career, I was still like this,
Yeah.
So
You're just trying to
figure stuff out and, how to best be a better SEAL. But
okay. And I know the ODAs, they kind of separate based on geographic responsibility and languages. Is there some similarity there on the teams? You kind of mentioned like specialties.
They used to be like that. Team 2 used to be European, and it had Team 4 was more South America. Team 8 and Team 2 kind of had split a little bit with like the European,
like East and West Europe, maybe. Yeah.
And but when Force 21 happened, it kind of all went to
it just
kept changing.
Yeah,
it just kept changing.
And by 2005, I mean, it sounds like you've been in the teams for about 10 years at that time.
No, about 6.
6. Okay. So what kind of role are you in at that point as you're going down range?
I was still the corpsman, the medic. I was a senior medic in my platoon, but I was also like helped with ordnance, or did had other things that help out with other departments. But in 05, when we went over there, we had a good team. We had a good platoon. The OIC was amazing, and the platoon chief was, I couldn't ask for anything better.
Wow.
Yeah, he was just a well-rounded, just very sharp, and always on top of everything.
Which is what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Aspire to be.
I'd had some, but this guy was different. This guy was way different, and the chemistry in that platoon was just totally like, I don't know. It was just way better.
Was that because of time together? Was it like intentional on leadership's part? Could you put your finger on something?
No, it was just everybody was, I don't know. It was like a good NFL draft.
Yeah.
It was a great platoon, And later on, I asked the platoon chief, I'm like, how did you? He's like, it wasn't me. He goes, it was y'all. I'm like, yeah, you had a lot to do with it, though.
You think he meant like the way you gelled with the other people?
The way the whole platoon itself, and he said that, he told me this, he goes, a platoon chief's job is so much easier when the boys all gel and, work well together. And, when I became platoon chief, I realized that because I couldn't have asked for a better, to be a platoon chief of a better platoon.
Were you kind of looking back at how that guy led and cherry picking some?
It's as soon as I saw how things were, just meshing together and how platoons were doing well, it brought me back to what, that platoon chief dad had told me. He's like, it's the boys. The boys make the platoon.
Yeah. Maybe as we kind of keep going down that road, I'd like to circle back on that because Lord knows not everybody has that experience or that fortune. And I don't think it happens by chance,
But I think it's, like I said, he drafted the right people.
Yeah.
And whenever I was platoon chief, I had the right group, the right mentality for my platoon. There was a couple of guys I probably could have, used other guys, but the way it ended up, it was a great platoon.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have changed anybody.
What was the feeling in kind of 04 going into 05, knowing you're about to go down range? Like, what were some of the other teams saying, or what was the feeling going into that at that time?
We were all pretty gung-ho. We were all very excited because, we were actually able to do stuff, to do our job. And all the training that we've been doing, we look forward to going down range and, applying our knowledge and our experience. And that's what we did. And, with that leadership we had, we took out a terror cell network while we were there. And we were doing that and doing the security for the top 5 government officials of Iraq.
Jeez.
So we did.
It's a tall order.
So we did 3 months of that and then 3 months of doing the direct action.
That's great.
Yeah.
Probably very rewarding to go from one to the other.
We prefer the DA.
I would imagine.
Well, it's being like a PSD, personal security detachment, is way different. You're on the defensive versus the offensive.
Yeah. I feel like many of you didn't sign up to be on the defensive.
No, we didn't. No. But you know what? They tasked us with it.
Yeah, we got to do it.
And that's one thing that platoon chief, him and the OIC, told us that this is important. And this is why we got picked to do this, because we can adapt quickly. And, yes, we're on the defensive, but when it comes down to it, we will be on the offensive like right away.
When you were doing that PSD work, were there any close calls with that? Because I got to imagine it's like 99% quiet and then 1% like, oh geez, this can go sideways.
It was, the pucker factor was always there, because we had a guy who was deputy prime minister, but he didn't ever seem to sleep. He was very, very focused on creating a constitution for Iraq. And we were on our toes all the time, because at the last minute, he wanted to go do this.
So moving.
He wanted to go move. He wanted to go, meet with so-and-so. He wanted to go meet with so-and-so. So it was a constant changes for us, but we adapted well. And, luckily, we never got hit. Yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah. And you were in Baghdad then, I would imagine. Can you take us, when you kind of go to the DA side, if you recall, the first time you go on one of your ops, some people it's crazy, some people it's mundane. Do you remember your first?
It's control chaos. But all the training we do just prepared us for it, and things just flowed. And it is like shocking, when you first start seeing rounds, or you get, your first breach. there's a live breach. You're not practicing now. You're rolling down Route Irish, which used to be heavily IED'd, and we rolled down that thing quite often. And it was always one of those things where you train for it, you brief what you're going to do, you rehearse it over and over, and then right before you head out, you kind of stop and think, I wonder what my wife and kids are doing back home. Hopefully they're sleeping over there, they're doing this and that. And then you have to stop and focus back on what you're doing.
Yeah. How long do you have for that moment to think back?
Yeah. It's a brief moment, but I think most guys do it. I know I did. I would just pause for a little bit and think about that, hoping that they were doing well, and then focus back on the mission and on the op that we were going to go on. And just, you'd hear all these IEDs going off, all this stuff going on. And I don't know, it's like we had somebody looking out after us because we didn't have any IEDs and we were on that road a lot. And we went after people and we'd snatch them. Most of the time, not even a bullet.
Yeah. That's when it goes well.
Yeah, we'd snatch them right out of the bed. So it went well for us.
How you mentioned you were able to take down a cell. For people who are listening, like, what does that end up looking like? How do you do something like that in 3 months?
Well, I think whoever was doing the DAs before us had maybe taken out a couple of guys, and then they led us to other guys. So we started, with 10 guys down here we caught, and they pointed to some more guys. More guys, and it just took a pyramid until we got to the leader of that cell. So we managed to take out a whole network, but still didn't put a huge dent. Put a dent in it, but not a huge one, because there's all these different cells, that are working. And as soon as you take out one, somebody else tries to move in. They're not as organized, but they might be.
Yeah. Was that first deployment as chaotic as you may have expected?
Yeah. And it was actually things went well for us for the most part. Things went really well for us. I couldn't have asked for it to go any better. We didn't lose anybody. It was weird. We just got to do our job, and our leadership was really smart on what we were doing. And, it was awesome.
And I guess you had the right intel, you kind of like choosing when to hit the targets. Mm-hmm. Even going down Route Irish, I have to imagine is like it's a crapshoot.
Yep. Yeah, we got lucky. Yeah, like I said, somebody's looking out after us because we rolled up and down that road. And there was another road, I can't remember the name of it, that was heavily IED'd, and we rolled down that one too.
And no close calls for you personally on that first go round?
No, I couldn't say anything close.
Yeah. And in 2005, you're probably not calling home every night, right?
No.
I mean, what's the communication like with the family?
Maybe once every 2 weeks, if that.
Like a pay phone call? Or is maybe in the office or something?
They had, I don't know what they had back then, but we could make calls every once in a while.
Yeah.
We could email and make calls from time to time.
And your kids were probably 3, 5?
In 2005, my son was 6 and my daughter was 5.
I've heard folks mention before. I mean, when I deployed, I had a son, but I had not deployed without kids before. But I've heard people who have mentioned it's a very different experience when you got the kids at home.
Yeah, you think about them a lot. You think, because they don't understand.
No.
They kind of did in a way. They had their own way of telling their friends where I was at. They'd say that Dad's over there fighting the bad guys, so they don't come here to hurt us.
Yeah,
that was their kind of like their way of putting it.
It's true, right? And they're probably in classes, I would imagine, with a lot of kids with dads downrange, like you. Jeez.
Virginia Beach is big Navy. You got some Army. You got some Marines. You got a lot of SEAL teams.
Yeah. What was the homecoming like? I mean, that was your first. You've done deployments before, right? You've done the ships and.
Yeah. Homecoming and the teams was totally different back then.
Really? What do you mean?
You'd land, and they'd take you back to. Sometimes there might be somebody there to meet you at the airport, but you land at the military base airport, and then they'd take you in buses to the team, and then your wife might be there to pick you up, or I usually have my vehicle. I just go home and drive.
Just hop in, no banners, no.
No, we're nothing like that. I think the only time we ever had like a homecoming was like Team 10 when I got back from Afghanistan. When we got back from Afghanistan, there was actually like a whole thing there.
Any reason for that one?
I think they decided that we probably should make it kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we liked it. I mean, I didn't mind coming home and then just driving home. Driving home. I didn't mind that at all. Now, I'm sure a lot of guys didn't mind it either.
No. I know this book is controversial, but No Easy Day, like the Bin Laden raid, it was, I think, this first book that came out by Matt Bissonette after the raid. He was one of the SEALs on the raid. And I think the book had a lot of controversy because it wasn't cleared by the Navy when it came out. But I distinctly remember reading that and how he came back from that raid, got in his truck and went to like Taco Bell or something on his way home. Yeah. And it was just very like for such a huge event to think that you're at a drive-through window ordering some burritos.
Yeah. You just
a couple hours after.
You come home and it wasn't, I don't know, they didn't make a big deal out of it first.
Yeah.
Not until, like I said, in 2012, Team 10, when they got back, it
was a bigger deal.
It was a bigger deal. And I thought it was kind of cool. It wasn't a huge deal, but it was, like family and stuff were there. So, and you come in, when you're in the SEAL teams, you might have one troop come home at this time and then another troop come home the next day or 2 days later. It's not like the whole team comes in at the same time.
Yeah, you don't have 1,000 people rolling in to the hangar. So when you came back, people process it in different ways, but were you pretty high on getting back out there for another rotation? Or were you like, I need to spend some time here with the kids?
Well, a little of both. But I had, when I came back in 2005, I had gotten orders to go to work in medical in our compound because I was trying to knock out some college so I could go to PA school later on. So I was supposed to be at home, and I ended up traveling a little bit more. I started doing some medical scenarios implemented into the training, like land warfare and CQC. Mm-hmm. I was using MULAS kits and stuff, and everybody seemed to really enjoy it. So I found myself traveling to training sites a lot. And then, let's see, I did that for the first year. And then the second year, I had a guy that I knew who was a master chief of a Team 4 that came over and asked me if I'd deploy, was willing to go with him and 5 other guys down south. He knew I spoke Spanish and he knew me. He goes, "You got a good reputation, and I'd like for you to, if it's okay with your wife, with as you call her, the long-haired admiral, And I'm like, she'll probably be okay with it because she knows I'm miserable just coming to here to medical every day. I had fun with the guys. I worked with a good bunch of people there, but she knew I would prefer to be out and about. So sure enough, I ended up going 3 months down south and just doing something different.
Was that more training, kind of drug related?
I was working with some of the units from Central America, and also doing kind of observing some patterns from people coming through. But we had a good time.
Was there any when you're doing something like that instead of being in Iraq or Afghanistan? Was there any frustration? Would you rather be in those other places at that time?
Yes.
Did that come up? Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, being able to just get away and doing something different like that was rewarding.
Yeah.
And but some of the other guys, they were still, like the rest of their platoon was in Iraq, so they were a little disgruntled. But once we got into a little groove down there, they were okay. Sure, any problem would rather be in combat than twiddling their thumbs if there's a war going on.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just go when you want.
Yeah. And you're in Team 4 at that time still.
No, I went to
right. You would switch.
I'd switch over to medical. I was working.
Okay. But when you went south, you didn't join up with another team?
I just went like an augment.
Got it. Okay.
Helping them out.
So what do you come back to then? Is it?
I come back and I had picked up a leading petty officer position at Team 10. So I came back for a few months and then checked into SEAL Team 10.
And what is that role? How does that?
Well, you have your OIC, which is platoon commander, and you have an assistant platoon commander, and then you have the platoon chief, and then you have the leading petty officer, and then you have the rest of the guys.
Got it.
So that was my first kind of leadership position there as a LPO is what we call it. And it was good because the platoon chief was kind of quiet, but very, very hard charger.
Yeah. Are you formally in charge of people in the platoon at that time?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. How did you that was your first time you said kind of in that leadership role?
Yeah.
Were you excited about that? Was it
excited and
nervous? Yeah.
But everybody looks forward to that position, and then all the enlisted guys look forward to being a platoon chief. That's like one of the pinnacles, and then go on from there. But so that's one of the steps that you have to do well at before you can become a platoon chief.
Yeah. So they're kind of watching you at that point as they bring you in. And how long do you have with them before you deploy in that role? Because it's a new team, right? I mean, kind of.
Probably a year and a half.
That's good. It seems like it would be a good amount of time.
Yeah, you have 6 months of professional development, which guys are going to schools, or you're doing, if guys aren't in school, or you're getting new guys coming in, then you get them to the range, get them, all dialed in with their weapons as much as you can. Just do some basic things, get them accustomed to platoon life. And then after that 6 months of professional development, then you start your workup, which is, you do all your blocks of training, which, CQC, land warfare, diving, skydiving, air ops. So you're doing all those in the next year.
So, and you got all that time with them.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah, you do. And you get to know you guys really well.
Yeah. How much are you getting to know their families?
Actually what I did, and I would have them over at my house for barbecues a couple of times throughout this, and we'd get together. And to me, that was important. That way, people knew each other. It's not just the guys know each other. The families knew each other. Because when we were gone quite a bit. So that way they knew, okay, hey, I can call so-and-so, because, her husband's gone training too. And she's probably been through this. She can help me.
Yeah.
So it kind of helps them. So I'd have barbecues at the house quite often.
To just build that camaraderie within the families.
Yeah.
Jeez. I have to imagine when you deploy this next time in this leadership role, there's even more responsibility that you're taking with you, knowing the families, knowing the guys. Yeah. But I don't know, you're like one big family. And you spend more time with the guys than you do at home. Yeah.
So, you get to know the guys really well. And you go on deployment and it's, I don't know, just you feel at home.
Yeah. when you're down there.
Yeah.
Downrange.
You kind of feel at home when you're downrange.
Yeah. So maybe as we kick this off, before we get into this second deployment that you're mentioning, how did the SEAL teams go about that historical learning, passing down tradition, or maybe not tradition, but lessons learned? Do they do these? Would you go study past battles? Would they bring people in? Does that happen in the teams?
Not really, but it's just passed on. Like the guys who have been in certain battles, like they'll come in and talk to you, or we're on certain ops. They'll come in and talk, do a brief, and you get to listen in on that.
That's great.
But a lot of that's just in writing, and it's like the way we train. It's like every time we deployed and come back, the next training cycle would be different because everything was changing. Like every time we deployed, the enemy was doing something different, so we'd have to adapt. It was like a constant, pretty much like a river, always changing.
Yeah. Well, as you get ready to go on this next deployment, you mentioned you're the LPO, right? Where do you end up going for this one?
Going to Iraq, to Ramadi, Shark Base.
And at the time, pretty contentious. So, this is 07, 09. Jeez.
Yeah.
So what's the battle space like at that time?
Rules of engagement have changed quite a bit. Roles now they're trying to do a lot more those like key leadership.
Oh yeah, engagements. Yeah.
So we'd roll around, and we'd also targeting. We still have targets coming up, and we try to target them. And there was just a kind of a lot of different things that we were doing it all combined.
And it's got to be a lot harder doing that as opposed to, all right, now we're doing direct action.
Yes, very different. Yeah. Because sometimes at night you go out at night, but sometimes in the next day you'd have to take, the CO and the mass chief or whoever to a key leader engagement. So sometimes you're running on no sleep. It was just a totally different deployment on that one.
Not as much fun might be the wrong word.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. And in that one, close calls, did you guys lose anyone?
We didn't at my location. My sister platoon lost an EOD guy at their location. And he was a young kid, great guy, well liked by everybody.
That's tough.
Yeah. That one was, it was a tough one. We all knew him, real close with him. But that was one loss.
Yeah.
That we had.
On that deployment, is there kind of an op or a mission that stands out that you still think back on?
No, it kind of all blended in because we were just going from one thing to another. And it was just, I don't know, it was just different.
Yeah.
It's like we couldn't get into a groove, into a good routine because one day we'd taken somebody to KLEs.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And that time we were doing this. And so it was like back and forth. And then whether they would let you action the target or not. And
because of the ROE.
yeah, it was weird.
Does frustration mount within the team? It's got to be tough when you're in a leadership role.
Very frustrated. The guys were very frustrated, but then it wasn't on our end, and it was up above us. Sometimes you get risk-adverse leaders, and was sucked because you're there to do a job, and because of the way they think, they won't let you do your job.
And I'm sure looking back from 05 to 09, the difference in the ROE and the mission set.
The leadership. Also.
Yeah.
I mean, 05, our leaders wanted us to go out and do our job, take out the bad guys. And 09, it seemed like a couple were more worried about how they looked.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a good deployment for a lot of us. We got to do some fun stuff, but not what we were capable of.
Yeah.
That way.
One of the things that you mentioned just before we hit record here was, as your son got older, kind of noticing a difference in you as you came back from deployments. When does that start happening, that shift? Or could you, maybe you can't even put a finger on it.
I can't really put a finger, but I know it would take me the first couple of deployments, probably a couple of weeks to a month to kind of get back to what I thought was my normal self. And then just more deployments take longer. In my 2011 deployment to Afghanistan, that one was the one where it kind of just, I wasn't getting back to normal.
Afterwards, it just...
Yeah, it was just, it was very different. It was like I'd hit something that just wouldn't let me come back to my normal self. By that time, my sleep patterns were horrible. Maybe getting 3-4 hours a night, if that. And I stopped having dreams. I have nightmares sometimes, but dreams were not, couldn't remember having a dream. And I was always tired.
Were the nightmares combat related?
Yeah.
Instances of combat.
Yeah, most of it, it was instances of combat, but some of it was like things that hadn't happened, but it had to do with combat. It was really weird, but I was kind of strange that I remember that, but I couldn't remember having a dream.
Yeah. Maybe I'd like to circle back on that. Let's talk about that deployment, that 2011 deployment, but then I'd like to circle back onto this topic of what it.
Okay.
I think it's an interesting place to explore. But 2011, same team.
Same team. I had almost the same group of guys.
Wow.
I was blessed that they wanted me to be their platoon chief. They wanted to be in my platoon. And when we did our drafting, the other two platoon chiefs, there was 3 platoons in my troop. The other 2 platoon chiefs, I gave them a rundown of what I knew of each guy that had been there already. And they kind of picked accordingly, and I got to pick pretty much everybody I wanted also. And it worked out pretty good because during the workup, all the platoons seemed to be have the right group, right mesh, the right chemistry in the platoons for the most part. So I got lucky and was able to keep most of my guys and a couple of other guys that I wanted. And then, the new guys, well, just rolling the dice and
See what you get.
see what you get. But I got lucky because I got some really outstanding new guys. They were really sharp. Some were just those kind that you just tell them what needs to be done and they'll do it. Others are, already looking ahead, very sharp and tactically sound. So that platoon was, I don't know, that's when I saw how things were meshing and how the workup was going. That's when went back to my 05 deployment when my platoon chief had said, you guys are the ones that make this platoon great. And I thought about that. I'm like, yeah, I see what you're saying. It's the guys that made it. I had a great OIC. He was probably an enlisted guy and he was a great guy. So we all had a really good chemistry. We got along great, and it was another. I was lucky, blessed in that aspect, but all the guys were hard chargers. Some a little too hard on liberty, but that's okay.
But you probably want a little bit of that from to some of the. Yeah, you don't want it at the time, but okay.
Oh no, they were great guys. Just loose cannon sometimes, but I didn't mind them at all. I wouldn't have traded them for anybody.
Did you have any, philosophy as you kind of had that leadership role that you brought with you, or was it really just we bring the guys together and make sure they're gelling?
Well, I had barbecues again at the house. I also told the guys that had already been around for a little bit, because they, when they were new guys, there were some disgruntlings about some things that they didn't learn, some things that, the new guy games or whatever, the hazing, what you call it.
Yeah.
And so I pulled those guys in and I told them, I said, okay, you complained to me about how things happened before when you were new guys. How are we going to fix that? How are you going to bring up these guys, these new guys?
Putting it on them.
Well, yeah, because I always told everybody, if you come to me with a problem, come to me with possible solutions. I don't know it all, but I'm open-minded. And so they were very respectful of that. So they came up with different ideas. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. Let's roll with that. Let's go with that. And the new guys, the way they were bringing up the new guys, they were bringing them up, making them earn their trident every day, but also making it fun.
Okay.
Kind of in a fun way and team building, which is, what I tasked them to do. And they were happy that I allowed them, to do that. And I was happy that they took it on because, like, hey, you come in with a problem, how are you going to fix it? How do you suggest we fix it? And so they did. So they brought these new guys and, just bringing them up right.
That's great.
And I had a variety of different things. Like one guy was from Boston. I couldn't understand a word he said. He's from South Boston. He comes up in the platoon hut one day and tells me that somebody's looking for me. He goes, "Hey, Chief, Common's looking for you." I'm like, "We don't have a Carmen." "Who?" "Common. Common." I'm sitting there like, who the hell's Carmen? Oh, yeah. And then it's funny that, he was kind of a wiry guy. And here, some guy that was with him, I guess, through boot camp and then through Buds and then SQT and then here at the team. Louisiana boy, big old Cajun boy. Looked like a Viking, big old guy. He comes up, "Hey, Chief, he's saying that the coroner's looking for you."
He's like a translator for him.
And I'm like, Okay, when he comes in to talk to me, you need to come in with him.
With the nearest interpreter.
He goes, I got you covered, Chief. Don't worry about it. He's like, that's what I said. I said the common. I said, you need to pronounce your R's there. South Boston. Oh, and I nicknamed him Kid. Yeah, so the Kid was, it took me a while to be able to understand what he was saying. But Louisiana boy would always come in with him to translate for me.
To translate?
Yep.
Was there any personality or characteristic that you were mindful of trying to restrain or push down as you see like that could damage that chemistry?
No, the guys that had been in there before, the guys I tasked to bring in, they all did a great job of that. Of keeping any attitude, because I never saw it. If there was any attitude, these poor guys kind of brought them up. They handled it because I never saw it. And I did have some of those guys that, the guys that had been around, for a couple of deployments that I was worried whenever they were out on their trip.
Just, you didn't know what was going to happen with that.
One of them was Luz Cannon, who was the best right-hand man you could ever ask for. Tactics-wise, he was locked on. In combat, you wanted him right next to you. But you were afraid to let him go out of liberty.
Oh, jeez.
But he's he was hilarious. And just it would make you laugh about it. He actually got banned from some casinos in Reno.
Was it because he was winning so much? Or? No. Sadly.
No, wasn't winning. I can't remember what he did, but yeah.
But it wasn't winning. We know that.
It wasn't winning. He wasn't winning any hearts and minds either.
No.
No, I can't remember what he did, but he was banned from. When we went back up there, because he went up there for school, and when we went back up there, he was like, "You think they'll let me in?" I said, "They got facial recognition." No, you're not going to get.
No, let's not even try it.
Shit.
Well, where do you end up going in Afghanistan for that? What part of the country do you end up going to?
Southeast.
And what is, so 2011 you said?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Marcia had just happened. Maybe that was a little farther north, or in Helmand maybe. Were you around like RC East?
Yeah.
What was the mission set for y'all? What was that deployment like?
It was something new called the VSP, Village Stability Platform, or Village Stability Operations, where they would send a group of us up there, and instead of having this big compound that, we had guards that we had to go through, and then into our little compound inside the big compound, inside a base, we were on our own. We were living up in the village with, we had our own guys standing watches. We did have a local militia. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
Local Afghan, regular army guys that kind of watched a little bit outside our perimeter. But, it was nothing for us to get like mortared or attacked every 3 or 4 days. So that was totally different. We got there, we didn't have any. We were eating those cold weather MREs for a while. And when they brought us into George Foreman, we thought we were just living high.
Wow.
Yeah. Because we got a fridge and, we had some generators and we were cooking burgers and chicken, and we were living high on the hog.
Yeah.
But we didn't, we loved it. We wouldn't have, I don't think we would have traded for anything else.
And as you're kind of living in this village, you're running ops from that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have many people, right? platoons aren't that big. Like,
I don't know.
there's only so much you can probably trust your local militia.
Yeah, and you still got to leave a couple of guys in your little compound. To run the place and enough to fight off if something happens, and the little militia to help. It was pretty early on when my troop chief and troop commander realized we needed more guys there. So that's when we started getting guys from other platoons, other troops that sent down to us. And that's where we came up with the name Bog's Bastards, because it was VSP Bog.
Mm-hmm.
And we were we had bastardized our platoon.
People from everywhere.
People from everywhere.
Come and join us.
Yeah.
What type of ops would you end up running then, as you're doing some targeting, I imagine?
Some targeting, and then we'd go into villages, trying to talk to, village elders and all that, but with the understanding that we're also looking for the bad guys. So sometimes we go out at night, sometimes we go from, KLEs during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just did that, but we were all pretty content because we were getting to go do stuff. The only problem, one of the problems we had was every time we stepped out, we'd come across IEDs, and we never took the same path. I never took a paved road. I never took not a paved road, but any roads. I didn't take the same trail. My point man was always picking different routes, but we'd always come across several IEDs.
And I mean, I got to imagine you set some of these things off over the course of several months.
We had some amazing EOD guys. When we got there, we had an EOD guy from NSW EOD, which Naval Special Warfare, we have some EOD guys that work within us. But then his time was up. So we ended up with 2 EOD guys that weren't NSW, but they were from unit in Spain. But they were in Afghanistan working with, I don't know who they were working with, but somehow I ended up with them.
They were Spanish nationals?
No.
Okay.
They were
Americans.
They were Americans, American EOD in the U.S. Navy, but they weren't part of the NSW program. They were from a unit there in Spain, but they were working in Afghanistan. And these two were totally opposite of each other. One was OCD.
Which is probably what you want. I got maybe for EOD? Yeah.
And the other one was like a gear grenade went off every time we walked in a room. And it was funny because they'd been together for a while. I think they were both prior corpsmen, and they both went to EOD school together, and they both got stationed together. So they'd been together for a while. They were like Abbott and Costello, put it that way. Yeah, they were hilarious.
Oh.
But they were locked on. We'd be patrolling, and they'd like, something's not right over here. And sure enough, they'd find IEDs. Wow. Yeah, they were amazing. They kept us alive.
Jeez.
Yeah.
How unnerving was it being in that leadership position out, not in the open, but you're not on a big fob anymore?
It was challenging, but I knew I had the right guys with me. I just wish I would have had my whole platoon.
Yeah.
Instead of, I had 3 guys from my platoon in one location. I had 3 more guys in another location. So I just wish I would have had my whole platoon at once. But, it worked out okay because the guys that they did send me from other troops, other platoons, they meshed well with us, and we made things work.
You mentioned when you come back from this deployment that there's, like this is the one where it's hard to shake the post-deployment kind of malaise? Was it because of something that happened or things during that deployment?
Just, we had a lot of close calls. And lost one of my guys, one of my teammates, and another EOD guy that was with us, he got triple amputee. But luckily that the other medic was right there, and somehow he managed to save that triple amputee. He's got life. And the doctors at the hospital there, that they took him to, like, whoever did this, deserved a medal
For saving him.
Because there's no reason this guy should be alive right now. Yeah, so he did an amazing job on it, and but it was just a lot of close calls, where IEDs were just everywhere. Luckily, a couple went off low order. One time we got sent to go get a BDA, and I'm walking up this hill, a little mountain, and I look down and I see the wires, probably an inch away from my foot. I guess when the A-10 had come through on a run, it kicked up some of that dirt off, and so luckily I spotted the wire. Yeah.
What are the odds of that? Of all the places you walked?
Yeah, of all the places, we walked around there, and it was just, at that point, I got on the radio and told everybody, hey, follow your footsteps back, keep a close look. The hell with this BDA.
Yeah, it's not
live
worth
without it.
Yeah.
We can live without it. Whoever wants it can come get it themselves.
Jeez.
Yeah, so it was, and, usually we do 6-month deployments. And this wasn't, we were tasked with 11 months.
No way. From the start, you knew it was going to be 11?
Yeah. I don't know whose bright idea that was, but, and I know Army units go out there and do 1-year deployments. But this was very different, especially with the op tempo that we were doing. It just, I think that on top of all the IEDs we came across, the close calls we had, and then losing, one of the guys, just, I think all that just finally took its toll.
The person that you lost, was that to an IED also?
Yeah. It was the same time that IED, they were driving on the side-by-sides, and they hit a 100-pound IED. And on the right front tire, the passenger was an EOD guy, and he triple amputee, and something from either the chassis or something came and hit the SEAL operator, my teammate, in the head, instantly killed him. I think the only mark on him was broken ankle, and other than that, bits on his head, and some burn marks. That's about it.
Was this one of the guys that you've been with on the team for 4 years by then?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He was a young guy, had a wife, 2 young kids.
No.
Not even 2-year-old, and I think his youngest son was just born in May, and this happened October 1st. He was home to see his son, in May, and then he came back out to my location. And that's when this happened.
Jeez. Did you all have the ability to do a memorial kind of in the village at your fob, basically?
Well, because of an 11-month deployment, I was scheduled to come back to the States for 2 weeks. So I wasn't even on the op. I was waiting, and it was kind of hard. I was waiting there
to go home.
And I woke up. I woke up to go listen to them launch on the op. And I woke up and then I heard somebody knock at my door in my little room I was in. And I opened it up and there was another SEAL that was working in the talk there. And I go, hey, I thought they weren't launching for another. He goes, oh, they left early. And I saw the look on his face. I said, what's wrong? He told me that they hit an IED and one of the guys was already confirmed dead. And so at that point, I just threw on what I had and went over and listened to the rest of the them launch and trying to get medevac to come in. And something happened with the medevac that's changed crypto the night before, or somebody didn't change crypto, and so there was a delay in that. So,
and you're miles away. Like, I mean,
yeah,
you can't. Nothing you can do.
Nope. So I get pissed off and start wondering, is this a dream? Why that kid?
Yeah.
So that hit hard for all of us. He was the closest thing to a saint that I'd ever seen in teams.
Really?
Yeah. He didn't cuss. He didn't drink. He was just a very wholesome guy.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That I got to imagine that has to be one of the hardest things you did in your career, was kind of have to be there in the aftermath of that.
That plus, since I was already going home, I got to escort the body home.
Yeah.
That was the hardest thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you talk through what that's like?
It's hard to explain. We had a little memorial on the ramp. Then we got up on the plane. It was a big C5. And him and I were the only passengers.
No way.
And I grabbed my guys together. And I told them not to go do anything foolish or go out half-cocked. Start planning something. Put together a good plan. Come up with some good, pull up some intel. And when I get back, we'll go take care of business. The plane ride home was, I think we went to Kuwait first. And we landed in Kuwait. And I sat there for I don't know how many hours. And they had to put new fresh ice on the body. And sat there with the chaplain for a while. Then from there we went to Germany and asked one of the pilots if he'd grab me something to eat. And I go, we can secure the place. We can secure the plane. No, just grab me something to eat, please.
You just weren't going to leave.
Yeah. No, I couldn't. It was, I don't know, a lot of things running through my head. It's like, why him? And then from Germany, landed in Dover. And that was, I didn't want to get off the plane at that point because I had to go face his wife.
Yeah.
Go and see his wife and tell him, sorry, I couldn't bring your husband home.
And the family's there when you come off the plane?
Family's there, and both families. And they both come from big families, like 7 or 8 brothers and sisters. It was that was the hardest thing I ever had.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine that time home was certainly not what you expected. It probably has to be in your mind the whole time for those 10 days to 2 weeks.
No, it wasn't anything. And I feel bad because my family had to bear the brunt of it. I had to do, spoke at the memorial at Little Creek at our base, and then I flew to Omaha, Nebraska with him and spoke at the memorial there. The Kennedy ceremonies there where he's buried. And then when I got back from that, they told me I could still take some time to spend with my family. But, it was just I wasn't there. And that's why I say I feel bad for my family, because I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Physically I was, but not mentally. At the same time, the Group 2 Master Chief told me that the EOD guy that was with him was brought up to Bethesda. So in order to kind of give me some time to think, I actually hopped on my motorcycle and rode it up to Bethesda to go visit him.
From Virginia Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So you were gone for most of that R&R, basically.
They gave me time.
Yeah.
But I was gone, quite a bit for the memorials and everything like that, and to go visit the EOD guy, Bobcat.
How much? I mean, I would just imagine that there's this desire for revenge, but it's an IED. Like you don't know who put that thing in. It's hard, with the intel picture you might have.
Yeah, we knew they were making IEDs. We came across a couple of mills that there was traces of homemade explosives. But you can't blame the locals. Taliban comes in and tells them what they want to do.
Yeah.
You can't argue them, otherwise you're dead. And that's, they got to live there. Well, some locals you can't blame, but yeah, that's what we all want to go get revenge, but you got to do it in the right way. You got to get your intel. You got to get some information, plan out, try to find out where this guy's at, where these guys are at, and then go start going after him.
Mm-hmm.
But up there in the mountains, it's next to impossible sometimes. So we just kind of try to do things methodically and not go out of our norm, and just continue conducting business as usual with a little more, a little more fire.
Yeah.
Than normal, which we normally go out with a lot of fire, but we weren't going to shy away from anything. Put it that way.
How does something like that impact that chemistry that you've built up over time?
Well, it definitely had an impact, but luckily the guys stayed focused. They stayed focused, and because we knew we couldn't just go be cowboyish about it. Just go, do what we wanted to, because if we didn't do what we knew, what we were trained to do, then we were going to possibly lose another guy. So we just continued doing business as usual. The guys built a huge wooden cross, because Caleb, we call him, when he first came in the platoon, in the previous platoon, I called him Preacher Boy. His father was a pastor. And he was, like I said, very, very wholesome kid. So he actually would say a prayer before we went out on ops.
For everyone, like with the group. Yeah.
Or before the meals, he'd sometimes, give us a prayer. So the guys built a huge cross, and they somehow got it up to a mountain that was overlooking our site. And they took a cratering charge, put a hole in the earth up there, in the rock. They got concrete somehow up there, and they concreted it in.
Wow.
Yeah. So that helped them kind of stay focused. Keep them busy, because nothing worse than a bored team guy.
Yeah. Did the enemy try to take that thing down? I could imagine that being
I think we were told that they thought it was booby trapped. So they left it alone. The whole time we were there, they left it alone.
Wow.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
To this day, that was
That's interesting.
12, 13 years ago.
So when you come back from this deployment, I can understand why maybe it's a little harder on you.
Yeah, it was already, my lack of sleep was already starting to happen from, like 2008, 2009. And I didn't really realize what was going on. And, but after this deployment, it was maybe 3 hours. And I was having a hard time remembering things I shouldn't, forget. My wife at the time, and I would be talking about something, and she's like, you know what? I'll find out. Let me make a few calls and I'll find out. 5-10 minutes later, she'd come back to me and say, hey, so this is what the deal is. What are you talking about? I'd already forgotten the conversation we just had. A couple of times going home, I had to stop and just pull over in the parking lot and look around and like, where was I going? And I'd sit there and look. I was going home. Where do I go? I'd forgotten where I lived. It was really strange. So, and my short-term memory was horrible. So I'd actually talked to one, even though I was an 18 Delta, graduate and everything, I didn't want to self-diagnose. So I talked to our corpsman, our team, troop corpsman, because that was his job. I said, hey, I'm having some issues. I'm that, kind of back to normal by now, but I'm having some issues, with my short-term memory and things. So he went to medical and was talking to one of the docs there when the head doctor, she knew me, and she's like, are you talking about Chief McGuire? He's like, yes, ma'am. Have him come see me. So the next day I went to go see her. And then right off the bat, she told me that she didn't want to hear any of this macho SEAL bullshit. She said, I want you to be honest with me. I was kind of looking at her and go, okay, yes, ma'am. And she started asking me all these questions. And then she said, I'm going to recommend you go to NICO. I'm like, what's that? And she told me it's National Intelligence Center of Excellence. And it's like a PTSD and TBI clinic. I go, man, I'm good. I don't need to go there. I don't got none of that shit. She looked at me. She's like, from these answers you just gave me, I beg to differ.
Wow.
Just humor me and see if you can get accepted. So, they sent me. It's a month-long clinic. And they found all kinds of things wrong.
Was there any stigma with you going?
No.
I think people would look at the teams and be like, can't talk about that stuff there. They won't let you.
No. because there was a Master Chief, I think Group 2 Master Chief, that came and talked to me about it. He told me it was the best thing that he did. He goes, it's the best thing could happen to me. He goes, it explains a lot. He goes, there's no cure for a lot of things that we have going on, but it explains it, which is gives you some clarity.
And that was enough to give you the
to just okay, because this is a guy I had the utmost respect.
Yeah.
So I ended up going, and they found all kinds of things wrong, like they did a sleep study. Pretty much what this clinic does is they go from head to toe, examination on everything, cognitive tests, neurological testing, just all, you name it, we cover it there. So one of the tests was a sleep study. And they woke me up and I got to put this mask on. I don't snore. And no, Chief, you don't snore, but you stop breathing. You stop breathing quite a few times, like so many times an hour, which is, considered like high, medium to higher or something like that. So I'm like, okay. So then they pull me in a couple of days later at the sleep doctor. And he's like, you see all these white spots here? Because they also did an MRI on my brain. And I'm like, yeah. What are they? Like, those are from like blast injuries, concussions. Did you say you haven't been knocked out by an explosion? I said, no, I've been rocked by a few explosions, but never knocked out. I always had my wits about me. So they were like, he's like, well, these are from blast injuries, concussions. So when you're trying to retrieve a memory, short-term memory, it's like a electronic thing that spikes up, it goes and retrieves and it comes back. He goes, those white spots are kind of causing it to just die down before it gets to where it needs to your memory bank for your short-term memory. I mean, okay, how do we fix it? There's no fixing it. You can just retrain the brain, maybe. And he goes, another thing, he goes, we found it strange that you said you don't dream. That's how I had a dream. It's been several years. So I have a nightmare here and there, but not very often. He's like, yeah, when you did your sleep study, you're not going to REM sleep. He goes, you kind of go into just right above REM for maybe 2-3 hours, and then you come up and I'm like, yeah, I'm wide awake. So they were concerned about that. So of course, first thing they try to do is give you meds. They don't work. So, but that explained a lot of things to me.
Mm-hmm. Did it make you feel better hearing that?
It did, because like I said, it gave me it explained why things were happening. So at least there was a reason. It wasn't that I'm just losing it, which was good. And then I kind of just trying to follow their protocols and like how to do things, different things, and to help. They gave me an iPad, play memory games. It seems to help throughout the years. But sometimes there'll be times when I can't even think of it. My short term is just gone.
Wow. And did the family notice this?
Oh yeah.
In you? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, they also called and talked to my wife at the time. And I guess they learned a lot from her too.
Well, she's seen you in different states, right?
Yeah. So
after that, are you able to go back to the teams then?
Mm-hmm.
And the short-term memory.
That was actually my last combat deployment. After I came back, when I was in Afghanistan, my next set of orders were supposed to go to the training command because I'd never been to a training command. And somehow I ended up with orders to go to Bahrain for a year. Unaccompanied.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said no to that, or you had to do that?
Well, if I would have said no to that, then they could have sent me to, like the West Coast or some other place.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd have to move my family. So I talked to them about it, and I'm like, okay, I'm gone another year, but at least you're here in an area that you have your friends here, your schools are good here and everything. Or I could say no, and we could end up no telling we're willing.
Yeah.
And so they kind of like, this really sucks. So I ended up taking those orders. And then I got extended out there for 15 months.
No way.
Yeah.
How was it being there?
At first, I was kind of pissed about going there. But once I got there and sat down with the CO and the master chief, and they told me what they needed of me to go work in Kuwait as a country engagement officer. And I told them, all right, you tell me what you need done, and don't worry about me being pissed off about my orders coming here. I'll do my best to get your mission accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of hard going there because I was having to work with the Kuwaiti, military and stuff like that. But I did end up becoming really good friends with a Kuwaiti SWAT training officer. And I hung out with him a lot. Actually.
Nice.
And we talked about a lot of different things, and it actually helped me. And I got to do a lot of great things there.
How did that help you? What do you mean when you said that?
Well, initially going there, I was pissed off because here we've been fighting Muslims, and now I had to go work with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that Kuwaiti training officer picked up on that. Even though I didn't say that to him, he just knew, he knew that something was up. And finally, after we got to know each other, I told him, I said, yeah, I've been fighting Muslims, and then here I come to work with you. And I said, but now I get to know you. It's kind of helped me because it's opened up my eyes about this.
Mm.
And so him and I became real good friends.
Wow.
We actually still stay in touch.
That's cool.
But yeah, it was a learning process for me because I'd never been in that kind of role.
Yeah.
And I worked for a really good Air Force general there out of the OMCK office, out of the embassy. And there were some good people there that I actually enjoyed working with them, and it turned out I did a good job for her.
All right. What made you decide to finally get out?
Well, right before I went to Bahrain for those orders, I found out that they had given my orders to somebody who'd only deployed twice, maybe 10 years, whereas I deployed every 2 years. I've been deployed. And pretty much certain people lied to me about it. And they told me the truth off the bat. I might have been a little upset, but the fact that they lied about it, and then I took those orders, and the guy who got my orders, got what he wanted again. I'm like, you know what? Time for me to get the hell out.
Mm-hmm.
So I finished my tour at the unit in Bahrain, working out of Kuwait, and came back and did training cell. I ran the dog program for a little while. And I trained some of our support personnel in basic firearms, and then some like mobility training, heavy like the machine guns, train them on different things. So that when they went to the teams, they could be an asset versus a liability.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got sent to work at training detachment, land warfare, and finished out my time there.
And then moved on.
Moved on.
And you ended up at, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Joel, you ended up at the Honor Foundation, right?
Yes, I did.
I think we've had, I want to make sure I get the name right, Matt Stevens, yeah. So we've had him on here just talking about obviously his career, but also that program, which is pretty incredible.
Yes, Matt Stevens was actually my CEO at Unit 3 in Bahrain.
No way.
Yeah. He always reminded me of how worried he was sending me to Kuwait. He goes, because I could see the anger in your eyes. But he was happy that once I got there, that he saw it. I was able to do a lot of good for him.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
To the extent that him and the Air Force general that wanted to keep me for another year.
You did too good of a job.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it happens. Right. And I mean, just for people who are listening, could you just explain what the Honor Foundation was like for you? It seems like a great program. I just want to make sure people have heard about it.
Yeah, it is a great program, and I'm glad they started, utilizing it. Transitioning from the military to civilian life it's kind of difficult.
It is hard
because when's the last time you wrote a resume? You don't really write resumes in the teams. You write, your resume is trying to get you to be an LPO, be a platoon chief, a troop chief, or something like that. So the Honor Foundation kind of teaches you how to use your military skills and turn them into civilian skills, as far as resumes, writing, and it kind of helps you transition, a lot more than the other military programs that we go to. When they teach you how to write resumes, they actually make you do interviews. And they have some big companies come in and actually you go through an actual interview. You have to be dressed properly during the whole course. When you do the interviews, you're in a suit, just like you would for an interview. You come in, they teach you a lot of things that most of us don't know.
You just don't have to know. Yeah, really.
We don't have to know. We know how to talk to team guys.
Yeah.
But we know how to talk to military children, but we don't know how to talk to civilians.
Yeah.
So from what I've seen, a lot of guys have gone out and done well.
Yeah. No, it's a great program.
Yeah, it is. It is.
A couple questions that I just like to ask everybody. One is there anything that you carried with you when you were downrange that had sentimental value, something that somebody gave you, good luck charm, something of like?
No, what I did always take with me was I always carried a knife and a Leatherman. The Leatherman was one of the first things I got issued when I got to the SEAL team. And for some reason, it just always carried that Leatherman with me. It came in handy.
Same one.
Still leather case. Had the leather case and everything. Probably one of the only few things I still have the first issue to me.
Yeah.
But that, and I always carried a sharp knife. But I had a small flag that I taped it onto my body armor, my plate, and it went with me on every op.
So I'm inside.
Yeah. Yeah, it was taped underneath my kit on my body, on my plates. And it went on every op with me.
Where is it now?
It's in my ballroom.
Nice. Very cool. And the last question I ask everyone looking back on all the time that you spent in, especially the loss that we just talked about and sacrifice, time away from family, as you look back on that time, would you do it again?
Yes. Yes. Feels like it was a good cause. It was a good fit for me. I just probably try to do it better.
Maybe fewer times through buds.
Yeah.
Right now.
That to start off with, but I would just try to do it better, and because you're always learning. So bring all that experience and just I'll do it again.
That's perfect. Well, I appreciate the time, Joel. I know we'll have Sam Mackey on here with us shortly. We'll hear from him individually, and then we'll have the both of you reminiscing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he comes in probably on your Afghanistan trip.
He does.
As one of the bastard children.
Bastard.
All right, there you go. So that's what we'll have next for people. Thanks so much, Joel. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Ryan.
I hope you enjoyed this combat story. Joel reminds me of somebody I crossed paths with when I was 16. My dad was just wrapping up his career. We were at MacDill Air Force Base, and we could go to the commissary there. So when I was 16, I had just gotten my license. I would drive to MacDill. It was probably 45 minutes away, and I'd go on. I'd get my hair cut there. It was so cheap to get your hair cut on a military base, as it probably is today. So I would go in there, and I was walking in the parking lot and had on, I think it was a Navy SEAL t-shirt. And this one guy was walking out to his car as I was walking in, and he stops me and he says, "Hey, can I buy you a bud?" And he didn't know I was 16. I probably looked a bit older, but I had this SEAL t-shirt on, and he and I got to talking, and he thought I was a SEAL, and I said, "No, I'm just representing, I love the unit and would love to be anything like that one day." But he was this tough old frogman, and that's what Joel reminds me of as we wrap up this interview. A very humble, tough as nails guy. And I know I had alluded to it in the intro, but we're going to be doing a joint interview with Joel and another guy, Sam Mackey, who you'll hear next week. So we've recorded the interviews with them together. And when we were prepping to interview Sam, I asked him who else he would recommend, and Joel is who he put up there. And Sam worked for Joel when they were deployed downrange, where Sam was the young buck and Joel was the established frogman platoon chief. So very interesting dynamic, but I just have a ton of respect for Joel. He's the kind of guy you want leading a SEAL team. So with that, couple comments from you all. I just wanted to say a huge thanks. I get such a kick out of these. So a few of these are from our interview with Jack Beaumont, French fighter pilot and DGSE intel officer. I just wrapped up his first book, The Frenchman. I highly recommend it. It's gripping. It's a fiction thriller, spy thriller, but with a lot of real-world tradecraft. So if you kind of geek out on that the way I do, you'll like this book, like right from the beginning. With that, let's see. So we got J Hill 405, and he says, "I haven't left a comment in a few episodes, but had to on this one. Jack's description of the 3-day squadron initiation, and especially the real-world mission he flew on 9/11, were intense and captivating. I would agree entirely, especially that initiation sequence." I think I heard somebody recently talk about, these young kids, they don't get hazed. It's not tough for them anymore. And just listening to what Jack went through, that was next level creative hazing. But you can see he tells it with a smile on his face, and it was fun for everybody. So I hope we don't lose all of that with the way we're going. And then we have another one from Mark Sutton, and he says, "Hey, being a British veteran JTAC, I heard many similar stories live over the net, those from people like Jack. Always had the utmost respect for our soldiers in the sky and what they did for us. I can say without any doubt that if I had this guy giving us SOCOM cover, I would have felt extremely safe. Thanks for the stories. They keep getting better and better." Love the fact we have a British JTAC here. And I'm going to try to reach out to you because I would love to get more insight from our brothers across the pond. And then we've got one from, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, Wheelie T. He says, I love this podcast. I've been listening on Spotify at night for about a year, and I'm thinking about becoming a fighter pilot. This episode was amazing and one of my favorites. Greatly appreciate it. If you've been listening for the past year, you've heard some of the great ones with these pilots. A few to go back on as well, though. If you just started in the last year, go back maybe to the beginning, the first 20 episodes. We had 2 pretty amazing pilots on there that are worth revisiting, including someone with, I believe it was 3 air-to-air kills, which is incredibly rare these days. And then we have another one here, an Apple Podcast review. It says from Malcolm X, which is an interesting tagline. And this was, again, a 5-star review on Apple. He says, great podcast. Just stumbled on it and listened to the 2 episodes with Mike Edwards. Well done. In it, you mentioned something about Chaplain Eustra. So that was my next episode. So rich. As an Army chaplain, the 2 perspectives tied together by the SOF experience and their relationships with God was balls out refreshing. Thanks for interviewing them both. What really struck out to me in these 3 episodes was the cleanliness of the interviews. They're ones I will share with my son in the hopes they'll inspire him as they have inspired me. Thanks again. #NextGeneration. And then lastly, this is from See a Cowboy, Apple Podcast review. It says, I love it when the show goes into the nitty-gritty details of how and why things happen in the field. Please never shy away from the intelligent conversations for the lowest common denominator. Not that I ever see you doing that. Thank you, and please keep up the great work, bringing out the philosopher in each warrior. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I love that comment. It says, P.S. Would be fun to hear from more soldiers of the world's militaries, hear the differences in culture and practices. So greatly appreciate this. I should also say, for those who are still listening and have toughed it out, Mike Edwards texted me the other day. He was going into a Verizon store and said that there was somebody there who recognized him from our show and said, you're a celebrity. And Mike said, no, I'm not. He goes, well, I saw you on TV, so that makes you a celebrity. But it's just cool to see that love that's out there for the men and women who served and getting the recognition they greatly deserve, which I know you all see and feel. So thank you for listening. Thanks for sticking it out. Greatly appreciate it. And stay tuned for next week with Sam Mackey. You're in for a really good one. This guy's just getting out of 20 years in the SEALs, and he's a good friend of Joel's. So I think you're going to really appreciate this one. Stay safe, y'all.